Hello and welcome. I'm Ali Mustafa and this is Strait Talk. US President Donald Trump recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, upending decades of American policy. We break down the blowback. Plus, we head to a forgotten corner of Greece where a Turkish Muslim community is struggling to save its identity. And science or fiction, we look at a course prepping students for first contact with extraterrestrials. A decision with potentially disastrous consequences for the Middle East. Despite repeated warnings from much of the world, the United States has declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel.
This is a long overdue step to advance the peace process and to work towards a lasting agreement. Israel is a sovereign nation with the right, like every other sovereign nation, to determine its own capital.
As part of the move, the U.S. Embassy will be relocated from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Trump says all of this will advance the peace process, but apart from Israel, no one seems convinced. Palestinians joined much of the world to condemn the decision, saying it compromised years of hard work and jeopardized the so-called two-state solution, with Jerusalem being shared, serving as a future capital for both sides. But now such aspirations are at risk.
إن قرار الرئيس ترامب هذه الليلة لن يغير من واقع مدينة القدس ولن يعطي أي شرعية لإسرائيل في هذا الشأن، كونها مدينة فلسطينية عربية مسيحية إسلامية وهي عاصمة دولة فلسطين الأبدية.
Turkey has led global condemnation against the U.S. move, threatening to even cut diplomatic ties with Israel. Turkey will host an OIC summit with Muslim countries next week in Istanbul to discuss the issue.
Böyle bir adımı atmak dünyada özellikle bu bölgeyi ateş çemberinin içine atmaktır. Ey Trump, sen ne yapmak istiyorsun? Bu nasıl bir yaklaşımdır? Siyasi liderler karıştırmak için değil, barıştırmak için olurlar.
It's an issue that has the potential to escalate in the coming days. Is it a red line that President Trump shouldn't have crossed? And to get the latest from Jerusalem, we're joined by TRT World's YOLO app, David. What can we expect in the days ahead?
What's expected especially is that there will be further demonstrations. There have been in many towns and cities, especially in the occupied Palestinian territories. There has been also, even here in East Jerusalem, as people come out of the Temple Mount area and from the Old City. Now, what some of the Palestinian leaders are asking for is to have more non-violent demonstrations. But even when there have been non-violent demonstrations near Damascus Gate, the police, when they feel threatened, when they think that things are getting a little bit over the top, in their view, they will move in and try and stop it. But what's interesting is that while some elements of the Palestinian leadership is asking for a third intifada, a third uprising, other people are asking for more measured reaction to Donald Trump's announcement, and they are asking for more non-violent protests.
Thank you for the update, Yolo from Jerusalem. Well, earlier I spoke to the Palestinian ambassador to Turkey, Fayed Mustafa, and asked him what fallout might there be from Donald Trump's decision.
This decision changes all current equations in the Middle East. The peace process, which was launched in Madrid in 1991, and its complications were all built on international legitimacy and decisions made by the international community and the United Nations. That the land occupied in 1967 should be used for establishing a Palestinian state, and within this land is Jerusalem. with American recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, the U.S. administration would effectively be destroying the basis that the peace process is built on, and it would have disqualified itself as the country fit to sponsor it. It is clear that the party which is running the United States has been touched by a bit of insanity. Trump no longer understands the extent of such decisions or the importance of such decisions. Jerusalem is not a thing to play or joke around with. It is the holiest and most sensitive political and holy place in the world. And the U.S. administration did not take this into consideration when deciding to make such a decision, which will have a very dangerous impact on regional and international levels. There is no longer a peace process. In fact, the region is now open to a new wave of violence. The situation will only get worse.
President Erdogan of Turkey has called for an extraordinary summit of all Muslim countries to come together on this specific issue after the US announcement. What more can the Muslim world do?
I think this is the right time for the Muslim world to speak its voice on this issue and make itself heard clearly by the US administration that Jerusalem is a red line. And the Muslim Ummah will not allow the state of Jerusalem to be determined by a decision made by Donald Trump and a group of his aides. I believe that the position of Turkey regarding this issue is an advanced one that we, as Palestinians, highly respect and appreciate. The Turkish people, leadership, and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan responded to the decision from day one, and we have heard the President's clear and firm statements about it. In addition to his invitation to an urgent meeting in Istanbul, which is a great example of his positive response. We believe that our Muslim Ummah needs to come out of this meeting with clear decisions and statements.
Let me turn your attention to a recent article in the New York Times which said that during President Mahmoud Abbas's trip to Saudi Arabia, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman presented a plan under which the Palestinians would get a state of their own, but only non-contiguous parts of the West Bank and only limited sovereignty over their own territory. It also goes on to say that the vast majority of Israeli settlements in the West Bank would remain. The Palestinians would not be given East Jerusalem as their capital, and there would be no right of return for Palestinian refugees and their descendants. Will such a plan be acceptable to the Palestinian leadership and the Palestinian Authority? And this is a departure from the Saudi position, isn't it?
We will not accept under any circumstances the establishment of a Palestinian state without having East Jerusalem with its known borders as its capital. We heard and read such reports, but we trust that the Saudis will not accept this. And we have not heard from them regarding accepting anything less than the whole of East Jerusalem as the capital of the Palestinian state. We do not think Saudi Arabia would accept this, nor would any country. We know that the Israelis are trying to break the trust between the Muslim nations, and certain sides of the American administration could also be involved in this to create a sense of doubt among Arab nations.
Fatah and Hamas are trying to look forward to elections soon, as they announced recently. Gaza was also discussed, the Rafah crossing, there's been agreement on that. Where does this unity government or this Hamas, Fatah, all this move together in light of what has happened with the Americans and Jerusalem?
I believe that we are on the right track at the moment in order to achieve national unity and to get over all of the internal discord that we have lived with over the past years. There are some agreements that were signed recently. Things are moving in the right direction. The reconciliation government is in some ways conducting its operations in Gaza and the West Bank. There is a decision and consensus on conducting a presidential election and a parliamentary session. I believe that anyone who's following internal Palestinian developments will recognize that what is happening now is giving a strong push to all Palestinian groups and parties to unite and reject all of the American decisions. I believe that anyone who is following internal Palestinian developments will recognize that what is happening now is giving a strong push to all Palestinian groups and parties to unite in their rejection of the American decision and their agreement to strengthen that unity in order to face this and other American steps threatening Jerusalem.
Final question. Is the dream of a Palestinian state over?
بالنسبة إلينا لا لم ينتهي.
We are not giving up because we have a relentless spirit, we have conviction, and we have a plan. We are not saying that this is an easy thing or that the road will be easy. To create a state is a winding road with many challenges. It requires support and patience. We have patience. We have intent. We as Palestinians are steadfast in our rights and our principles. We have international legitimacy. So we will continue to resist, and we will continue to try to establish our state. We know there are a number of regional and other issues that would make this very difficult, but that does not make it impossible. We do not submit to such a fate. The occupation is not our fate. Resisting the occupation is an obligation. And achieving our national goals is the aim. We will continue to work to achieve our national goals and the Palestinian state, with its capital being East Jerusalem.
وعاصمتها القدس الشريف إن شاء الله.
Ambassador Mustafa, thank you so much. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has made a landmark visit to Greece. It's the first by a Turkish head of state in 65 years. But Turks have had an uneasy relationship with the Greeks over the years, even coming close to war over a group of uninhabited islands in the Aegean Sea back in 1996. The refugee crisis now and Cyprus, which is a long-standing issue, have also been sources of tension. One group in particular has had to bear the brunt of this pressure. It's the Turkish minority living inside Greece. Now, Greece recognizes them as a distinct minority, but as Ömer Kablan reports, the Turkish minority inside the country finds itself struggling to save its identity.
Tucked in the northeastern corner of Greece is a hidden Turkish enclave. This is Western Thrace. Home to a large number of ethnic Turks, they've lived here since at least the 14th century. But they now say their culture is under threat. Between 1955 and 1998, approximately 60,000 ethnic Turks lost their Greek citizenship under the Greek state citizenship law. Greece did not accept the principle that one can be a loyal Greek citizen and at the same time an ethnic Turk. The European Court of Human Rights labeled this as discriminatory. Human Rights Watch continues to monitor the region, and as part of an ongoing study, they reported that Greece aggressively prosecutes and bans groups and individuals that call themselves Turkish. Nejat Ahmet is the president of the Komitini Turkish Youth Association. There are no signs at the entrance to the association's premises. That's because it's not officially registered by the Greek state, because the word Turkish appears in the name.
Any sign related to Turkishness is banned here. Turkish flags are not welcome here. This is degrading. The European Union's human rights laws clearly grant the right to express your identity, but we as a community can't. This is a saddening situation for all of us.
Mustafa Ali Çavuş leads the Party of Friendship, Equality and Peace. He says he represents the interests of the Turkish minority in Greece.
Greece's policies are shameful. Let us decide what our identity is. 100% of the people here will say they feel Turkish, but their policy is clear. Either you assimilate or you leave. This has to change.
The Greek government says it does not discriminate against anyone. I met with a former Greek politician from the Western Thrace, Damon Damianos, and he says the relationship between Greeks and Turks are improving.
The people of minority now have the right to say what they are, what they want to be. Something that was not happening the decades of 80s and the previous decades. Christians and Muslims, Greeks and Turkish will lead this peaceful relationship to the future between Greece and Turkey.
Only time will tell whether the problems of the Turkish minority in Greece will be solved, and whether this region will be the cornerstone of Turkish-Greek relations. Ömer Kablan, Strait Talk.
And to discuss this further, I'm joined in the studio by Ali Hussainoğlu. He's an assistant professor at Trakya University in Edirne, and human rights activist Bashi Qureshi. He's the Secretary General of the European Muslim Initiative for Social Cohesion. Let's begin with you, Ali. As we saw in that report, we're in the 21st century. Why is it that any minority inside Greece, especially the Turks, are facing discrimination or being discriminated against?
One of the main reasons has to do with the history of the minority, the history of relations of Greece with Turkey. Minorities, given that it's a national minority, bilateral relations between Greece and Turkey directly affects the fate of the Muslim Turkish minority. This was the case, this has been the case since the signing of the Lausanne Peace Treaty of 1923. And the minorities generally prefer to have, the minority prefers the two countries have better relations because this has a great impact on their everyday lives.
So in that context, how does President Erdogan's visit, this is his fifth visit to Greece, yes, but that was before as Prime Minister. How does his visit now fit into this context of growing ties?
The vast majority of the Muslim Turks of Western Thrace, they are appreciating his visit. And because Turkey is widely accepted as the motherland of the ethnic Turks living in Greece. And it's a kind of a gesture by the Turkish president. And it's a kind of that, I don't forget you. I come to Greece, but I don't also forget you because you are my co-ethnies, you are my co-religionists, and it has a more symbolic meaning. I mean, I don't believe that the many minority-related problems are likely to solve in the coming future. I mean the fundamental ones. But yet, it has a very robust symbolic meaning for the minority that the president of the motherland, Turkey, is there and is not forgetting you during his visit of Greece.
Well, that might be one of the intentions for Erdogan's visit, but
yes,
if you look at broadly, Greece is one example, and over the past few years, Greeks have had to contend with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people coming on their shores, some staying back, a lot moving on, but this is kind of endemic of Europe as well, of what's happening in Europe, isn't it, Bashi?
What is happening in Greece now is a little model of what is happening in Europe all over. I would say all over West, but let's say Europe because I live in Europe, I work there. In 70s, when ethnic minorities, including Turks, went to Europe to work as migrants, they were called migrants. Then they became guest workers, then they became foreign workers, then they became immigrants. Today, the word Muslim is used for everybody. There is no talk of nationality, no talk of ethnicity.
You're not a Turk, you're not a Bosnian, you're a Muslim.
Today in Europe, when you see media, for example, you only see pictures of men praying in the mosques and women with niqabs. This is a typical picture how Islam and Muslims are presented. So I understand very well the issues Greece, Spain, Italy has.
The idea of this undesired other has also gone through some sort of transformation, hasn't it? As Bashi was mentioning, now everyone's being lumped in as either an African or a Muslim in Europe, or to some extent. Yeah. But the Turkish experience has been different, hasn't it, Ali? They went in as migrant workers. They're held up as an example of integration, of proper integration, especially in a place like Germany. So tell us about that experience.
In the context of Greece, they have minorities at the one side and immigrants at the other. when we talk about the Turkish minority of Western Thrace, we are talking about one of the native, autochthonous communities all over Europe. They are one of the oldest, and they have been living there for centuries, for more than 6 centuries, even before Greece, Western Thrace became a part of Greece. But there is a major difference, even treatment of Greece, of the minority and the immigrants. Because immigrants, they are relatively newcomers. Okay. Many of them, they arrived by the end of the Cold War. And many of them, they have to work at the lowest wage jobs, levels. And they are really very difficult for them to integrate because they are newcomers. They have just arrived, and they are generally, many of them, they are unwanted people that their integration is quite painful, and it will take too much time. But the point with the Muslim Turkish minority is that because they have been living there for decades, they are Thracian in terms of history. Their integration is not as painful as the integration of immigrant groups. But there it stands the history which has to do with Turkey and the ethnic Turkish identity. I don't believe that many Greeks, they are troubled with the Muslim identity of the minority, but many of them, they are troubled with the ethnic Greek, ethnic Turkish identity of the minority.
I'll bring the conversation back to you, Bashi. No problem. You've lived in Europe for decades. How has that immigrant experience changed for you in your eyes and through your eyes for others?
What I would like very much, honestly, is that we are here, we are not going anywhere, and that Europeans have to understand. The world has changed now. It is much more cosmopolitan. Europe needs Turkey and other countries more than we need them. So as long as we are there, we are not going anywhere. And this thing has to come in the head of many Europeans, that we are not aliens, that we didn't fall from the moon or from the Mars. Many of our people were born there. They have French citizenship, they have Danish citizenship, they have Turkish, UK citizenship. And as soon as we are accepted as equal partners, the better would be for the society.
Ali Hussenoglu, Bashi Qureshi, thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation.
Conspiracy theories, extraterrestrials, and cover-ups. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But it's no joke at Turkey's Akdeniz University. The school in Antalya is offering an open course to prepare for what they call first contact with extraterrestrials. Here's our Adil Halim with his new segment we call Straight Up.
This Turkish university in this resort city on the Mediterranean coast is offering a new course called ufology and exopolitics to prepare for the possibility of extraterrestrial contact. Yep, with these guys. When people think of aliens, lots of options come to mind. The friendly ones, the scary ones, and especially the unknown.
So look at this. This is what we call a mothership.
Erhan Kolbashi is leading the new ufology course.
Well, it's important because something is looming on the horizon. Something big is coming, and we'll see the biggest change in the history of the world, I believe. There are signs everywhere.
The students range from 20-somethings to seniors.
So I'm a Muslim, so if you look to the Quran, as far as I know, it is written that God said, we have created many worlds. It means that there isn't only one world, our world. It could be other worlds.
I believe that God provided life not just for us, but also for the many others, like extraterrestrials.
To others, it's a head-scratcher.
I don't believe that UFOs exist, but if I learn more about them at this course, this may change.
There's no shortage of naysayers.
It is quite problematic to open a course based on an unscientific activity. I think it will hurt the credibility of Akdeniz University.
Kolbashi has heard it all before.
We got used to being called like nutcase. There are some negative reactions from the more conventional-minded people. This is quite natural.
Now you may be wondering why teach a course here at Antalya's Akdeniz University. Kolbashi claims Turkey is a hotspot for UFO sightings, in fact top 5 in the world, and he believes the first human contact will happen within 10 to 15 years. I guess you could say we've been warned. Adil Halim, Strait Talk, Antalya.
And that's all for this edition of Strait Talk with me, Ali Mustafa. If you've got any comments or suggestions, do share them with us at #StraightTalk. Until next time, take care and goodbye.